This video is all about gacha games that came out in August 2020. We will be using our tier list rankings to review these games for you. After multiple delays and one sour closed beta test later, Shining Beyond has finally launched for Android phones. It's surprising to see that the developers have taken input from the community after the latest closed beta test and decided to make some pretty major changes. The most notable of them being the shard system. You no longer summon shards in order to obtain heroes, instead you summon heroes normally and only obtain shards if you get duplicates. The VIP system has also been removed from the game. The biggest feature that separates Shining Beyond from their competition is the job system. There are a total of 4 different jobs, each with their own evolution paths. Mastering these new jobs gives you new stats and game-changing abilities. Another interesting feature is the idol system. Just like in many other idol games, you can collect resources and other rewards just by passing time. But there are also quite a few drawbacks. While the 2D artwork looks good, the 3D animations are a hit or miss. Then there's also the issue of voice acting. It's amateur at best and can quickly remove you from the immersion. Still, there's a nice progression system, and evolving into new jobs is something to look forward to in the long run. If the game felt more alive and polished, it definitely could pave the way to more people's hearts. But on our end, we believe Shining Beyond was one of the more prominent games in August and gets to land in the A tier. There's a new contender for Western gacha games, and its name is Tom Clancy's Elite Squad. Now, the past decade for Tom Clancy's games had been an interesting one, from co-op games to looter shooters. Now we also have the first mobile gacha game. While the graphics of the game are top-notch, as one would expect from a major game studio such as Ubisoft, the gameplay remains questionable. In fact, there's almost no gameplay, making Tom Clancy's Elite Squad feel more of an idle game than an action RPG one would expect. After you deploy your squad of characters, the only thing that's left for the player are to trigger the command skills. Before each mission, you can select up to 2 different commands, which can range from first aid to rocket missiles. But other than that, the characters will do the fighting while you will just sit there and tap a button once or twice to feel like you're part of the game. The characters themselves are very uninspiring and won't get recognized by anyone unless they are fans of Tom Clancy games. In fact, they are hard to tell even during combat. Whether this type of gameplay will prove to be successful remains to be seen, but at least the game has plenty of activities, side missions, and events to do. Ultimately, just like many other gacha games out there, the success of the game will be determined by what type of special events we will see. The auto gameplay is a matter of taste, and the bland character design could have been better, but we'll be moving Tom Clancy's Elite Squad to B tier. After getting recently acquired by Rovio, the company behind Angry Birds, Darkfire Heroes is one of the many gacha games that follow the footsteps of Clash Royale. To separate themselves from their competitors, Darkfire Heroes gameplay is more focused on presenting you with new modes of adventures. For example, there is a mode called Hero Race, where your goal is to reach the finish line faster than your opponent by battling waves of enemies. Typically, you battle your opponent, but instead you're both fighting side by side. As expected, the graphics and art direction are made with an intention to appeal to the widest possible audience there is. You won't see flashy animations or exciting combat, but at least it won't be resource intensive for your smartphone. Sadly, Darkfire Heroes just doesn't stand out from the sea of Clash Royale clones with its fairly generic gameplay and few innovative modes. The question remains whether Rovio is planning to completely overhaul the game and bring more life into it. We're excited to see what one of the most successful publishers are planning to do, but until then, we're placing Darkfire Heroes into B tier. When you first encounter Fate the One, you might think you're looking at an old Flash browser game that made its way into the App Store by an accident. It makes you wonder if the game was made to look like that on purpose. It could certainly work for a generation of people who grew up playing Flash games. Aside from this, there's really nothing that makes Fate the One stand out. That's not a bad thing though. This is a fairly average gacha game that appears to be quite friendly with premium currency and giving free summons. The gameplay loop is your typical turn-based RPG that won't have any exciting animations or fancy graphics, but this also means people won't need to have the latest smartphone to play it. Actually, the biggest offender would be the user interface that's just too busy and lacks any style or direction. Mobile games are all about tactile interactions with lots of buttons, and to have such a weak layout, especially in a landscape mode, feels like a missed opportunity. This looks to be like the first game self-published by the developer Minus Mobile, so this being their first title, it's quite commendable. There's a lot of details left to iron out for Fate the One, but the beauty of live service games is that they can evolve. Still, we will be moving Fate the One to B tier in this August tier list.
A long time ago, a magical stone protected the order of the...
This month, we have not one but two Clash Royale games, and unlike Darkfire Heroes, Soul of Eden comes prepared on many fronts but one. It's important to note that Soul of Eden was developed and published by Rayark, the same studio behind Sidorika. It seems that Soul of Eden has been around for quite a while and just recently launched globally. Now, while this is a Clash Royale clone, we would be doing a disservice for Rayark if we didn't highlight the main features that we believe makes Soul of Eden worth checking out. And the biggest feature that's worth mentioning are the factions. There are a total of 4 factions. Rayark made an interesting decision and decided that players will start the game with one faction unlocked. To unlock other factions, you must battle your way through opponents, puzzles, and challenges. This forces the player to learn the faction before moving on to the next one. Unlocking all the factions and completing their challenges takes about 10 to 20 hours. This game is also pretty generous with premium currency and cards. There's never a resting moment, at least until you're set on the path of acquiring all the factions. You will be unlocking new stuff left and right, constantly getting hit by dopamine rushes. Rayark is also known for their supreme production values of music and art, and it's clear that Soul of Eden has both of them. But when we mentioned that Soul of Eden came prepared, there's one thing it completely forgot to do. Almost no marketing at all. In fact, the Twitter handle for Soul of Eden is not even in English, even though it's supposed to be a global game. It's just not a visible game outside of the Rayark customer fan base. And these types of games desperately need a big population of players to thrive. We still highly recommend checking out Soul of Eden, especially for those who haven't played Clash Royale before, just to experience the 4 different factions and a series of fun challenges. But because we're unsure of the game's future, we will be putting Soul of Eden in A tier and hope it will build a strong fan base in the coming months. Probably the biggest hit this month was Kingdom of Heroes Tactics War. It seems that NeoWiz wants to position themselves as the go-to company of strategy RPG games. This is the same company that's behind Brave 9, a game that was previously known as Brown Dust. And it's quite clear that there's a heavy inspiration taken from Brave 9's artwork and applied in Kingdom of Heroes. That isn't a bad thing though. The 2D artwork is definitely eye-catching. What's interesting about Kingdom of Heroes is that battles are fought on small maps with just enough movement to position your heroes in kill zones. Some of the more challenging missions will require you to utilize different characters and their skills due to the elemental system and certain map layouts. But for the most part, the gameplay loop is pretty simple. You set the game on fastest speed with auto option on and just mow through mission after mission. At least the graphics are fluid with an option for high frame rate. The characters you obtain can have alternative costumes, and almost all of them unlock one when you invest more resources into leveling them. The menu transitions feel smooth and the user interface is clear and not cluttered. Basically, a very decent game that definitely calls calls for attention of anyone who enjoys playing strategic RPG games. It's one of the best releases during the month of August for gacha games, and so we'll be placing Kingdom of Heroes in S tier. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the like button. By subscribing to us, you give us all the support we need. Also, make sure to check out more of our videos and visit us at gachagamer.com for more tier lists and gaming guides.